So what's your view, Tom, on the whole debate about seizing Russian assets that are in Europe? I mean, we can see the temptation and the argument for it, but could that have some unintended consequences? Could it deter people from putting their assets in Europe in the future if they think they might be bad guys who would be vulnerable to assets being seized?
So I was just checking my watch because I wanted to see how much time we've got, because you've skated on to my favorite topic. So
and in fact, it's so much your favorite topic that I'll have to plug the great Politico article that you wrote with, excuse my pronunciation, Kinga Redlowska, which in a way puts you on Sir William's good side because you really echoed what he advocates in terms of the seizing of the Russian assets.
Yeah, so I think the first thing you have to say whenever you talk about Russian assets is that there are two different categories of assets. Here we're talking about the central bank assets, the reserves of the Russian Federation that were held by the central bank, not the oligarch assets, which is a topic which MPs tend to get foaming at the mouth about. So let's just put those to one side. When it comes to the central bank assets, just to recap for everybody, very early after the full-scale invasion, sanctions were passed by the G7 to immobilize Russia's central bank foreign reserves that were held outside Russia, primarily in an organization which has been thrust into the spotlight very uncomfortably, called Euroclear, which is based in Belgium. Important fact.
There we
Belgium's
go.
back. So what has now happened is people said, okay, there is, pick a number, $300 billion of these assets that have been immobilized. I must say that was probably the most effective sanction brought forward by the G7 over the last 3.5 years.
The most effective thing that they've done in the entire war.
That was definitely not expected by the Kremlin. So they're sitting there and people are going, okay, so what can we do with those? Tragedy, enter the lawyers who basically start explaining why there's nothing you can do with these assets. They're sovereign immunity, this, blah, 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 you can't take them away. But there are some smart lawyers out there. And so where we've got to now is I think there's generally an accepted belief that there is a concept called countermeasures. I'm not going to get technical, but there's a concept called countermeasures. It basically means that in order to coerce a country to do something, you can do something in return. So the idea here is that you would basically take those assets, but critically, a countermeasure has to be reversible. So a bit like sanctions, if Russia were to meet whatever is required of them in order to have those assets given back to them, you have to be able to give the assets back. What that means is you cannot take them away and spend them on rebuilding in Ukraine. You have to be able to return them. And so, yes, in the Politico article that you referred to that King and I wrote, we proposed an idea where that could happen. Now, in the meantime, the G7 has come up with a way of providing some funds based on the central bank assets. I won't get into the complexities of accelerated loans, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that some funds have been provided on the basis of those assets. But it was, again, a fudge. It was a kind of lowest common denominator solution. And actually, there are bigger bangs for our buck that we can get out of this situation if we're smart.